You know, I always thought the sex talk was this terrifying, one-time, awkward event that would leave both me and my kids red-faced and silent for days. And honestly, when I look back, that's exactly how many parents treated it, like a fire drill you hope to survive. But here's the thing. Today's kids aren't waiting for our perfect speeches. They're scrolling, texting, overhearing, and sometimes believing the wildest stuff from their friends or TikTok. That's why the sex talk isn't a single lecture in the living room with a dramatic sigh. It's a conversation, a series of small, honest chats that grow as your kids do. And yes, it's going to be a little awkward, maybe even hilarious at times, but it's also one of the most important gifts you can give them. Knowledge, confidence, and a sense of safety in their own bodies and choices. In this video, I'm going to take you through when to start, how to handle the tricky topics, and how to keep the conversation going without losing your mind, or theirs. I'll share real stories, subtle tricks that work, and psychological insights you can actually use. By the end, you'll see that the dreaded sex talk isn't a test. It's a bridge to raising informed, confident, and safe teenagers. And trust me, you'll want to get this right, because the alternative is letting the internet do it for you. Let's be honest, just thinking about the sex talk can make any parent's stomach do somersaults. I remember watching other parents stiffen at the words period, puberty, or consent, like someone had thrown them into an icy pool. And I get it. It feels vulnerable. Exposing your own awkwardness while trying to impress upon a child the importance of something so personal. But here's the truth. Avoiding it doesn't make it easier. It just hands the responsibility over to the internet, peers, or worse, misinformation that can stick for years. Kids today are growing up in a world we never imagined. They're on TikTok at 10, overhearing gossip at school, and consuming media that treats sex as a punchline or a transaction. The questions that used to arrive timidly, "Mom, where do babies come from?" now come with a level of curiosity and exposure that would make any parent pause. And let me tell you, it's not just about biology. It's about safety, consent, emotions, and understanding what healthy relationships look like. The stakes are high. A poorly timed lecture or a half-hearted explanation can leave kids anxious, confused, or worse, believing dangerous myths. This is where we have to shift our thinking. The sex talk isn't a single monumental conversation that happens once and is done. It's more like planting seeds over time, in small, age-appropriate doses, until a kid grows into someone who can make informed choices. Research shows that children who have open, honest discussions with parents tend to delay risky behavior, communicate better in relationships, and have healthier self-esteem. In other words, starting early and staying consistent pays off in ways you can't measure immediately, but you'll see the effects in confidence, responsibility, and even trust. And here's a little secret from someone who's been there. You don't have to be perfect. Kids pick up on honesty, calmness, and the willingness to answer questions more than they notice whether your sentences are flawless or your metaphors make sense. If you can create a space where your child feels safe to ask anything, without fear of judgment or embarrassment, you've already won half the battle. So yes, it's awkward. Yes, it can be uncomfortable. But this isn't about perfection. It's about connection. It's about giving your child the tools to navigate a confusing, fast-paced, and sometimes risky world. And in the next part, we're going to talk about something every parent wrestles with: timing. How do you know when your child is ready for these conversations and when it's too late to wait? Timing. Timing. The thing that makes or breaks so many parenting moments, and the sex talk is no exception. If you wait too long, your child's understanding of sex, bodies, and relationships might come from friends, social media, or, heaven forbid, those mysterious corners of the internet. Wait too early, and you risk confusion or overwhelming a kid who isn't ready. So how do you find that sweet spot? Here's what I've learned over the years. The sex talk isn't a single event. It's a series of moments. Think of it like layering a cake. You start with a little knowledge when they're young, then add layers as they grow, each one more complex, until they're teenagers capable of understanding the full picture. For instance, around ages 8 to 10, children can grasp basic anatomy, privacy, and boundaries. This is when you start planting the seeds of body safety, teaching them that their bodies belong to them and that no one should touch them inappropriately. Yes, it's awkward, but it's essential. Then comes the preteen stage, roughly 10 to 12 years old. This is where puberty starts to make its grand entrance. Voices changing, growth spurts, body hair popping up, mood swings that make you question your life choices. These are perfect cues for more detailed conversations about bodily changes, menstruation, erections, and yes, even attraction. You don't need a lecture. You need honest, matter-of-fact explanations. A simple, "Here's what's happening and why it's normal," goes a long way. By the time they hit 13 to 15, teens are ready for more nuanced discussions: relationships, consent, peer pressure, sexting, and online safety. This is when you weave in the emotional side. Talk about feelings, respect, communication, and boundaries. And don't be surprised if they roll their eyes at first. That's normal. Teen brains are wired for independence and risk-taking, so these talks need to be frequent and calm, not a one-off interrogation. Cues from your child matter more than age alone. If they start asking questions like, "Why do boys and girls get crushes?" or "What happens if someone touches me and it feels weird?" pay attention. These are golden opportunities. Kids often signal readiness long before we think they are prepared. Ignoring these moments is like missing a train. You can catch it later, but it's always smoother when you hop on at the right stop. And remember, this is a conversation, not a checklist. You don't have to cover everything at once. A short, honest answer today can lead to deeper discussions tomorrow. The goal is to make your child comfortable asking questions whenever they arise. That consistency is what builds trust and understanding, and it's much better than hoping they pick it up somewhere else, where the information might be half-baked or downright dangerous. So, in short, start early, pay attention to cues, and layer the information as they grow. The right timing isn't about age alone, it's about readiness and opportunity. And next, we're going to talk about how to actually talk about it, the tone, the words, and the approach that actually works without making everyone squirm. Now that we've covered when to start, let's get into the part that terrifies every parent: how to talk about it. And let me tell you, this isn't about reciting a script like a robot or dropping a biology lecture on your kitchen table. The key is tone, language, and approach. Kids notice everything: stiffness, judgment, even that little twitch in your eyebrow. If your conversation feels scary or embarrassing, guess what? They'll shut down faster than a phone with no Wi-Fi. First, tone matters. Calm, matter-of-fact, and approachable wins every time. Think of it as a casual chat rather than a trial. Humor can help, yes, but tasteful humor, not a cringeworthy joke about how babies are made that has you both laughing awkwardly and confused. Kids are smart. They can sense when you're uncomfortable. Ironically, the more relaxed and confident you are, the more comfortable they feel asking questions. Next, language. Keep it clear, accurate, and age-appropriate. This doesn't mean euphemisms or scary scare tactics. Your goal is understanding, not embarrassment. At younger ages, stick to proper names for body parts, simple explanations for reproduction, and clear rules about boundaries and consent. As they grow, expand to include relationships, emotions, consent, peer pressure, and media literacy. Avoid the birds and bees cliches. They're outdated, and frankly, kids will roll their eyes. One trick that works wonders is separating facts, values, and guidance. Facts are biological and straightforward. This is how your body works. Values are personal or cultural. We believe in respect and honesty in relationships. Guidance is practical. Here's how to handle a crush, peer pressure, or an unwanted touch. Mixing these without clarity can confuse a child, or worse, make them feel shamed for natural curiosity. Real-life examples help more than lectures. If a preteen asks why friends are talking about sexting instead of panic, you can explain what it is, why it can be risky, and how to respond safely. If a teen struggles with a crush or a relationship challenge, use storytelling rather than judgment. Share a scenario and ask, What would you do here? This builds critical thinking, empathy, and trust. And here's something most parents overlook. Listening is more important than talking. Kids are testing you, seeing if they can trust you without judgment. Pause, ask questions, reflect what they're saying, and answer honestly. Sometimes, the best guidance isn't a long explanation, but a calm, "I understand why you feel that way. Here's what you need to know." Ultimately, the right approach creates a safe space where curiosity is welcome, mistakes are part of learning, and trust is the glue that holds it all together. This is the foundation for tackling the harder topics: consent, safety, emotions, and online pressure, which we'll dive into in the next part. All right, now we're stepping into the tricky territory: consent, safety, and emotions. This is where a lot of parents freeze, worried they might say the wrong thing, or worse, make it more awkward than it has to be. But here's the truth: these topics aren't optional. They're essential. Kids today face pressures we never imagined: social media, sexting, peer teasing, and the constant flood of confusing messages about relationships and attraction. And their brains. Well, the teen brain is wired for curiosity, risk-taking, and experimenting, which means guidance isn't just helpful, it's protective. Consent is the big one. It's not just about no means no. It's about teaching kids that they have the right to say yes, say no, and change their minds, and that others have the same rights. A child who understands this early is less likely to be manipulated or manipulate others. Real-life examples help. You can discuss a story about two friends at a sleepover or a classmate's crush, asking, how should each person respond? This turns abstract concepts into something tangible. Safety is another cornerstone. Talk openly about personal boundaries, private parts, and what to do if someone crosses a line. This includes the digital world, online chats, messages, and images. Teens are growing up in a world where a phone is an extension of themselves, and knowing how to navigate that safely is just as important as knowing about their own bodies. Frame it as empowerment, not fear. The goal isn't to scare them, but to equip them with the knowledge to protect themselves and respect others. And then there's the emotional side, which many parents underestimate. Sex, crushes, relationships, all of these come with big feelings. Shame, guilt, jealousy, anxiety, they're real and they matter. Share that emotions are natural, and it's okay to feel confused. Normalizing emotional awareness early creates resilience and confidence. You might tell a story about a teen misreading a crush's signals or feeling left out of a social group and ask, what could they do differently? These small discussions build empathy, self-awareness, and better decision-making. Finally, don't forget context. Kids absorb lessons best when they see them in everyday life, through movies, shows, even news stories. A quick, calm chat after a scene in a TV show or a news story can spark discussion naturally. And remember, your goal is to create a space where they feel safe to ask anything without judgment. If they trust you with the uncomfortable questions, they're far more likely to come to you when it matters most. Navigating these topics isn't easy, but it's worth it. Kids armed with understanding, boundaries, and emotional awareness are better prepared for the world and for making safe, informed choices. In the next section, we'll talk about how to keep the conversation alive over the years, because the sex talk doesn't end after one discussion. It evolves with your child. Here's the reality. The sex talk doesn't end with one sit-down conversation. If anything, that's just the opening act. Kids grow, the world changes, and new questions keep popping up. So if you treat it like a one-time lecture, you're already behind. Think of it like tending a garden. You plant seeds early, but you have to water, nurture, and prune over time for anything to flourish. The best way to continue the conversation is through casual check-ins. These don't need to be formal or scary. They can happen during a drive, while cooking dinner, or even while walking the dog. A passing question like, "I saw this post online today. What do you think?" can lead to a meaningful discussion about relationships, online behavior, or consent. The more natural it feels, the less your child will associate these talks with shame or judgment. Another strategy is to let media guide you. Movies, TV shows, or news stories often present scenarios your child can relate to. If a character makes a mistake or struggles with boundaries, use it as a springboard. What would you do in that situation? This makes the conversation less about you lecturing and more about them thinking critically. It also helps them see that these issues are part of real life, not just abstract lessons. Trust is the glue that keeps these discussions alive. Kids are naturally curious, but if they feel judged or shamed, they'll retreat, and the internet will happily fill in the gaps. Keep the door open by listening more than you speak, validating feelings, and answering questions honestly. Even if the answer isn't perfect, showing that you're approachable builds long-term confidence and connection. It's also crucial to revisit values and boundaries as kids grow. Pre-teens may understand basic rules, but teens are exploring independence, identity, and relationships. Reinforce messages about respect, consent, and self-awareness in age-appropriate ways. Don't be surprised if the questions get tougher or the eye rolls get bigger. It's normal. The goal isn't to impress them with your knowledge, but to ensure they feel informed and supported. Lastly, recognize that ongoing conversations reduce fear, shame, and confusion. Kids who know they can approach you with questions are less likely to take unnecessary risks. And as a parent, there's a unique satisfaction in seeing that trust blossom. A teen who feels safe, confident, and capable is a reflection of the conversations you invested in early and often. Keeping the dialogue open isn't always easy, but it pays off in ways that last long after the awkward pauses, stifled giggles, and red faces of the first talk have faded. And in the next section, we'll tackle some practical tips and common pitfalls so you can do this effectively without losing your mind or your dignity. Let's get practical, because knowing when and how to talk is one thing, but actually doing it without turning your living room into a battlefield is another. Over the years, I've seen, and yes, occasionally made, plenty of mistakes. The good news is, most of them are avoidable once you know what to watch for. First, timing and readiness matter more than age alone. Don't wait for a perfect moment. That mythical window rarely shows up. If your child is curious, asks questions, or even reacts to something they saw online, that's your cue. Missing these signals is a common pitfall. Kids will either assume they're not supposed to ask or turn to friends and social media for answers, which is rarely helpful. Second, avoid overreacting. If a preteen asks about masturbation, a crush, or an online video, don't gasp, freeze, or launch into a stern lecture. Calmly answer, redirect if needed, and keep the conversation grounded. Overreaction creates shame and closes the door on future questions. Remember, your goal is guidance, not guilt-tripping. Third, don't dump everything at once. This is where many parents falter, trying to cover every topic in one epic talk. Teens process information in chunks, and throwing a flood of biology, relationships, consent, and online safety at them is overwhelming. Layer it, repeat it, and let their curiosity guide the pace. Fourth, be honest, but age-appropriate. If you don't know an answer, say so. Kids respect honesty more than a half-baked answer. You can also use resources, books, credible websites, or programs designed for adolescents. These tools support your conversation and reduce your stress. Another pitfall is letting embarrassment control you. Awkwardness is normal, but if you laugh nervously, hide behind euphemisms, or dodge questions, your child picks up on that discomfort. It's okay to acknowledge the awkwardness. It actually models comfort with discussing difficult topics. A simple, "This is a little awkward, but it's important," goes a long way. Finally, consistency beats perfection. You don't need to have every answer or deliver a flawless lecture. What matters is that your child knows you are approachable, open, and reliable. Frequent check-ins, casual conversations, and being present during teachable moments build the foundation for trust, confidence, and safer decision-making. Some final tips: use real-life scenarios, normalize emotions, address online behaviors, and reinforce boundaries. And remember, mistakes happen. The key is to keep talking, keep listening, and keep showing that this is a safe space for questions. No judgment, no fear. In the next and final part, we'll wrap everything together in a short conclusion, highlighting the main points and leaving parents with encouragement, practical wisdom, and a warm reminder that these conversations truly matter. So, let's wrap this up. The Sex Talk isn't a single awkward lecture. It's a series of honest, age-appropriate conversations that start early and continue as your child grows. Timing matters, tone matters, and trust matters even more. Kids need facts, guidance, and emotional support, and they learn best when they feel safe to ask questions without fear or judgment. Remember, start small, layer the lessons, address consent and safety, and use real-life examples to make it relatable. Mistakes happen, and that's okay. What counts is consistency, openness, and creating a space where your child knows you're approachable. I'd love to hear from you. How have your talks gone? Any awkward moments or lessons learned? Drop a comment below. I might respond personally. And if you found this helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more parenting wisdom delivered honestly, humor intact, and stress levels optional.